The roar of engines over Tokyo signaled a new era in the skies of war. By the final months of 1944, the Pacific War had shifted dramatically. The once dominant Japanese Air Force, once feared across Asia, now faced a relentless opponent. That opponent was the P-51 Mustang, an American fighter designed for range, speed, and deadly precision. Its arrival changed everything. The geography of Japan made defense difficult. Tokyo, with its wide urban sprawl, was both a symbol of imperial power and a vulnerable target. The United States Army Air Forces, under General Curtis LeMay, planned systematic raids against Japanese industry and morale. These missions required escorts. Bombers like the B-29 Superfortress could fly long distances, but without protection, they were easy prey for Japanese Zero fighters. The solution was the P-51 Mustang, now equipped with drop tanks that extended its reach deep into enemy territory. Japanese commanders understood what was coming. Veteran aces, many of whom had trained in the skies over China or the Pacific Islands, prepared for the onslaught. They knew the Mustang was no ordinary foe. With a top speed that matched or surpassed the Zero, heavy armament of .650 caliber machine guns, and maneuverability at high altitude, the P-51 Mustang was a predator built for long-range domination. For the Japanese pilots defending Tokyo, the mission was both patriotic and desperate. Their homeland was under siege. Fuel was scarce, replacements for lost pilots were rare, and the once proud Zero was now outmatched. Yet they rose to fight, aware that each mission might be their last. On the morning of November 24, 1944, the first mass B-29 raid against Tokyo began. Behind those bombers, like silent guardians, flew the P-51 Mustangs. They carried not just ammunition, but the weight of a strategy designed to crush Japan's ability to resist. The sky over Tokyo would soon become a theater of fire, steel, and sacrifice. The raids over Tokyo were more than just military operations. They were symbols of inevitability. General LeMay's strategy was simple but devastating. By unleashing waves of bombers, supported by squadrons of P-51 Mustangs, he aimed to cripple Japan's industrial heart and force surrender. The Mustangs, with their long-range capabilities, became central to this strategy. They could escort the B-29s from bases in the Marianas all the way to Japan and back, ensuring the bombers were no longer easy targets for Japanese interceptors. For the Japanese, the defense was fractured. Veteran pilots, who had once dominated skies over Pearl Harbor and the Philippines, were now facing overwhelming numbers. Diaries from surviving pilots reveal the hopelessness. One wrote, "We climbed to meet the enemy. Their numbers were endless. Their machines were faster. We fought as best we could, but it felt as if the sky itself had turned against us." American pilots, too, recorded their thoughts. One Mustang pilot described the sight of Tokyo's skyline beneath him. The city stretched on forever, smoke already rising from the first wave of bombers. We knew we were changing history, but in that moment, it felt like flying over a world on fire. The Japanese strategy relied on courage more than technology. Lacking fuel, many aces were grounded. Lacking replacement aircraft, they were forced to send young, barely trained pilots into the fight. Against the disciplined formations of P-51 escorts, these young men stood little chance. But courage was not lacking. Many Japanese pilots fought to the death, diving head-on into bomber formations, determined to destroy as many as they could. For them, survival was not the point. Sacrifice for the emperor was the highest honor. In the skies over Tokyo, the clash escalated. The Mustang's heavy guns tore through enemy fighters. Bombers pressed forward, dropping payloads that turned neighborhoods into infernos. The defenders fought bravely, but each loss weakened Japan's defense further. The balance of power in the Pacific had shifted permanently. The Mustang had made sure of it. The turning point came with fire raining down on Tokyo. On the night of March 9, 1945, one of the most destructive air raids in history began. Hundreds of B-29 bombers roared over Tokyo, escorted by squadrons of P-51 Mustangs. Unlike earlier high-altitude raids, these bombers flew low, dropping incendiaries designed to burn the city to the ground. The Japanese fighters rose to meet them, But the Mustangs were waiting. In the chaos of searchlights, tracer fire, and explosions, the air battle became a massacre. Survivors described the night as a storm of fire. The sky was red, the air too hot to breathe. Whole blocks of the city disappeared in minutes, one Tokyo civilian later recalled. American Mustang pilots had their own memories. One wrote, "We flew above the city and saw the flames spread like waves on an ocean. We were warriors, but we were also men. The sight below shook us in ways we could not speak of for years." The sacrifice was immense. More than 100,000 civilians perished in a single night. Japanese pilots, many flying until their ammunition was gone, rammed their planes into bombers or fought until their fuel tanks ran dry. Entire squadrons were lost. For the defenders, the question of honor overshadowed survival. They knew the war could not be won, yet they chose to fight. The clash of Mustang and Zero over Tokyo symbolized a larger truth. Technology, numbers, and strategy had outpaced courage alone. The Zero, once the terror of the Pacific, was now a relic. The Mustang was the future. But the cost was human. Beneath the statistics and victories were lives extinguished, families broken, and a city left in ashes. Was this destruction a necessary step toward ending the war, or a tragedy that went too far? By the spring of 1945, the skies over Japan no longer belonged to its defenders. The P-51 Mustang, once a new arrival, was now the dominant predator. Tokyo's defenders had been bled dry. The veteran aces were gone. The young replacements, many with only hours of training, were sacrificed in hopeless battles. American reports listed hundreds of Japanese aircraft destroyed in the defense of Tokyo, but the truth was darker. Many of those who flew never returned, leaving behind grieving families who would never know the full story. Survivors on the ground remembered the days after the Great Fire raid. The city smelled of smoke and death. Even the rivers ran black, one woman later said. For the Americans, the raids were hailed as successes. The Mustang had proven itself not only as an escort but as a ground attacker, strafing airfields and destroying supply lines. It had turned the tide, ensuring Japan's skies were no longer a shield. Yet among American crews, reflections were heavy. Some pilots admitted that watching Tokyo burn haunted them for the rest of their lives. The power of the Mustang, once a point of pride, became a reminder of the devastation it unleashed. By the time the Allies prepared for the invasion of Okinawa, Japan's air defenses were shattered. The P-51 had achieved more than dominance. It had ended the age of Japanese air superiority forever. The aftermath was not just military, it was human. Tens of thousands of civilians lay dead. Cities were reduced to ruins, and a generation of young Japanese pilots, once celebrated as aces, were gone. The Mustang had done its job, but the cost was immense. The story of the P-51 Mustang over Tokyo is not just one of victory. It is a story of transformation. The Mustang symbolized a shift in the balance of power in the Pacific. It proved that air superiority could decide the fate of nations. Its range, firepower, and reliability changed the course of the war. For Japan, it was the beginning of the end. For the United States, it was confirmation of a strategy that combined technology and overwhelming force. But beyond tactics and machines were the people. Survivors in Tokyo, decades later, recalled the terror of seeing Mustangs overhead. To them, the roar of those engines was the sound of death descending. American veterans, too, carried the weight. Many spoke in hushed tones about the destruction they witnessed. For some, the Mustang was pride. For others, it was guilt. Memorials in Japan today remember those who perished in the firebombings. In the United States, the Mustang is displayed proudly in museums, celebrated as one of the greatest fighters of all time. The contrast reveals the dual legacy of war honor on one side, tragedy on the other. The broader legacy of the Mustang is clear. It helped end a brutal conflict. It brought air power to the forefront of modern warfare. But it also left scars that cannot be erased. As we remember the skies over Tokyo, we are left with questions. Can destruction ever be justified if it shortens war? Do the voices of survivors weigh as much as the victories of generals? These are questions that history cannot fully answer. The Mustang's story continues to inspire, but also to caution. It reminds us that behind every machine of war are human lives forever changed. In our next documentary, we will journey to the Battle of Okinawa, where sea, air, and land collided in one of the bloodiest struggles of the Pacific War.